My name is Diana Reyes. I'm 36, and for over a decade, I served as a military financial auditor. That means I've seen fraud, desperation, and bad decisions dressed up in patriotic language. But nothing, not one redacted report or off-book transaction, prepared me for the day my own mother called and said, "We're losing the house." No hello, no how are you. Just those 5 words dropped like a file on my desk. "How much?" I asked. "250,000, she whispered. I stood still in my apartment kitchen in Boston, staring out the window like I might see the damage from here. "The house was paid off after Grandpa died," I said, keeping my voice even. "What happened?" There was a pause, a familiar one, then, "We used it for Alex. He needed help with his business." Of course, Alex, my younger brother. The serial dreamer, the family exception, the man who'd borrowed from everyone except consequence. I closed my eyes. "Send me the documents." Later that night, I spread the scanned files across my desk. Foreclosure notices, second mortgage papers, high-interest loan contracts signed recklessly, blindly. They were drowning not just in debt but in denial. Caleb, my partner, sat quietly on the couch. He didn't ask questions, just watched me read the damage, line by line. "You don't have to fix this," he said gently. I didn't answer. I was already calculating. By morning, I had drained a federal bond I'd been saving since Afghanistan, moved emergency funds from my retirement account, and liquidated my backup condo in Arizona. I wired $250,000 to the bank, saving the family home from foreclosure within 48 hours. In exchange, I filed a full title transfer. All legal, notarized, bulletproof. My parents signed without reading. They trusted me. That was their mistake. A few days later, my mom posted a photo online, her and Dad on the porch, smiling. The caption read, "Together we rise, family first, stronger than ever." No tag, no mention of the daughter who'd emptied her future to protect their past. That night, I sat at the edge of my bed, staring at nothing. They celebrated survival like they earned it, but I was the one who paid for it. And I hadn't even been invited to the party. It had only been a week. I wasn't planning to visit, but something didn't sit right. I had just wired $250,000. They hadn't called. No update, no thank you. Just that Facebook photo of them smiling like nothing happened. So I got in the car. Caleb came with me. He didn't ask why. He just said, "You want me to drive?" We reached the house around 10 a.m., first sign something was wrong. The driveway was empty. Second, no curtains on the windows. Third, the porch plants were gone, even the cheap ones. I unlocked the front door with the key, the one I was smart enough to keep. The house was empty, not half-packed, not mid-move. Empty, furniture gone, kitchen cleared, photos stripped from the walls, no voices, no scent, just hollow echoes of what used to be home. On the kitchen counter sat a single envelope. My name, scrawled in rushed handwriting. I opened it. "Thanks for the reset. We've moved on, don't call." Hey. That's it, no explanation, no apology, no signature from my mother, no kindness from my father, just the initial A. "Alex, they took everything and left me a sentence." I stood there for a long moment, not moving, not speaking. Then I walked room to room, not looking for anything in particular, just taking inventory of absence. They'd taken the TV, the rug, even the dented pot in the cabinet that only Mom used. They were gone. But the house, legally, was still mine. They hadn't read the title transfer. They hadn't asked questions. They assumed I was still the girl who gave everything and asked for nothing. They were wrong. That night, back in Boston, I opened my laptop, filed a legal property hold with the county, emailed the real estate office that had listed the property for sale with a copy of the deed in my name, emailed the buyer's agent, and finally forwarded everything to a fraud detection contact I knew from my military days. The next morning, the sale was frozen. The wire transfer the buyers had made to my parents' joint account, flagged, under investigation, escrow reversed, deal dead. I didn't send a text, didn't call, didn't reply to their messages, though they started piling up by noon. Missed call, Florida number, blocked number. Alex. Voicemail. What did you do? Why is the sale frozen? You just ruined everything. No, Alex. I didn't ruin anything. I just protected what was mine. Caleb brought me tea that night. We sat on the balcony in silence, the city buzzing below. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just said, "They thought you'd never draw a line." I took a slow sip. "I didn't draw it," I said. "I filed it." They tried to outmaneuver me with emotion. I responded with documentation. By Tuesday morning, I received a cease and desist email from a law firm in Tampa. Subject line: unlawful interference with property sale, Reyes v. Reyes. Cute. They claimed I had fraudulently asserted ownership, undermined a pending real estate transaction, and caused significant emotional and financial distress to my clients, i.e., my parents. They even attached a draft of a lawsuit. Caleb looked at the file over coffee. Are they serious? They're desperate, I replied. I replied with a PDF of the notarized title transfer, dated and signed. Screenshots of the wire transfer. The property lien record from the county clerk's office. A copy of the gift letter my mom had signed to bypass tax issues. And finally, a cover email. Dear Counsel, please be advised that the property in question is solely owned by Ms. Diana Reyes, as evidenced by the attached legal documents. Any further attempt to sell or claim the home without her consent constitutes civil fraud and will be pursued accordingly. This is your only courtesy notice. Regards, Dr. No emotion, no drama, just facts. The next day, I got a text from my mom, just one line, "You didn't have to do it like this." I didn't reply, because yes, I did. By the end of the week, their lawyer withdrew. The real estate agency dropped the listing. The bank confirmed the attempted deposit had been blocked, and the house they tried to sell out from under me, now sat in my name, untouched, secured, and monitored. They underestimated the one thing they never understood about me. I wasn't the helpful daughter anymore. I was a financial weapons specialist with a digital paper trail and nothing left to lose. The next letter I sent was to Alex's business investor. Why? Because his LLC used the house as collateral support in an equity promise. I sent the investor a gentle heads-up. Please be aware. Any financial commitments made by Alexander Reyes using 1129 Pinegrove Lane as asset backing are invalid. The property is not his, nor has it ever legally been since May 12. All documentation attached. 1 week later, his deal collapsed. That night, I came home to find Caleb waiting with a manila envelope. Inside, a small wood-burned plaque he'd made by hand. It read, "In this house, lies don't pay rent." I hung it in the entryway, just above the deed. It started with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Alex, can we talk?" I stared at it for 5 full minutes, then turned the phone face down. 3 days passed, then a voicemail came in. His voice cracked in the middle. "Look, I know I messed up, but Mom's not doing well. She's been in and out of the hospital. And well, Bate left, took the kids, I don't know what to do." I said nothing, not because I didn't feel anything, but because this was the first time he wasn't calling to demand. He was calling because there was no one left to ask. That night, I walked into the storage closet, opened the old cedar trunk I'd dragged from the Pinegrove attic months ago. Inside were Dad's old army jacket, the one with the faded unit patch, a set of wedding photos. Their wedding, not mine. Mom's pearl earrings, the ones she couldn't find after the move. And a shoebox of baby things, a hospital band, a crumpled paper with my birth weight, one Polaroid with Diana, day 3, in shaky handwriting. I packed it all into a cardboard box. No note, no explanation, just a printed label, returned to sender. I sent it to Alex's last known address. FedEx confirmed delivery, signed for by someone else. A week later, a small envelope arrived at my door. No return name, postmarked Miami. Inside was a single folded paper. "I didn't deserve to be the one you saved, but I remember when we were kids and I broke Mom's vase. You took the blame, you always took the blame, I'm sorry, for this time and all the others." Underneath, no signature, just A. I showed it to Caleb. He asked, "What will you do?" I folded the letter in half, slid it into the bottom drawer, closed it. "I'll do what I've always done," I said. "Keep what matters, return the rest." The guest room had been empty for months. I kept the door closed. Not out of grief, just because I didn't know what it should be yet. At one point, it had held my dad's spare uniforms. Later, it held boxes of Alex's startup gear. For one short month, it held my mother's sewing machine, the one she never used but always said she might need. Now, it was mine, and it was going to become something no one else had ever made in this house, a space for rest. Real rest. I picked a paint color called Coastal Stillness. It was soft, blue-gray, like the sky before rain. The kind of color that doesn't raise its voice, it just stays. Caleb helped pull up the carpet. We found old stains underneath. Wine, maybe, or ink. He asked if I wanted to cover it with rugs. I shook my head. No, sand it down, start fresh. By the end of the week, the room was different. The walls whispered calm. There was a wide wooden bench beneath the window, a shelf with tea tins, a journal, a lamp that dimmed with one touch, and a small plaque I hung near the door. "If you're tired of proving yourself, you're welcome here." The first person who used the room wasn't a client. It was Erin, the woman who once came in for a financial consultation. This time, she didn't bring spreadsheets, just an overnight bag and a face that had forgotten how to sleep. Her voice trembled. "My sister says I always make things too dramatic. I just needed somewhere I didn't have to explain." I pointed to the room. She walked in, closed the door, and for once, no one followed her with demands. That night, as the house finally felt quiet in a good way, I told Caleb, "This room used to belong to my past. Now it belongs to whoever needs to stop running." He nodded, including you. I didn't plan to write it. It started on the back of a receipt, a half-thought scrawled while waiting for the kettle to boil. "You always assumed I'd come back. The truth is, I never really left. You just stopped seeing me." That was the first sentence. The rest came like floodwater. I moved to my desk, took out the thick stationery I'd bought in Seoul on deployment, the one I was saving for something important. Turns out this counted. I wrote by hand. No edits, no filter. "Dear Mom, I don't know if you remember this, but when I was 9, I left a note in your coat pocket. It just said, 'I packed you an orange, please eat.' You never mentioned it, but I saw the peel in the trash the next morning. And that was enough. For years, I kept doing that, packing things, fixing things, leaving quiet offerings of care you never had to ask for. You once told Aunt Lorna I was the independent one. But independence isn't a compliment when it's code for. We forgot to protect her. When you called about the house, I didn't hesitate, not because I trusted you, but because I couldn't stomach watching another structure collapse, even if I wasn't invited to stand inside it anymore. You keep saying I changed. I didn't. I just stopped erasing myself to keep peace in a house that never gave me shelter. I saved the house, you left it. And that tells me more than your words ever have. I don't hate you, I don't wish harm. But from now on, I'll only give to those who treat peace like something sacred, not something expected. Sincerely, Diana." I folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, wrote her name, no address, then placed it in the bottom drawer, next to Alex's unsigned apology. Caleb asked that night, "Did you send it?" I shook my head. "No need," I said. "She already taught me the lesson. I just needed to write it down to remember." The sign was simple. Just 5 words burned into reclaimed wood. "The workshop, come as you are." Caleb carved it himself, hung it above the wide window facing the street. Inside, there were no cubicles, no waiting rooms, just one large oak table, surrounded by mismatched chairs, and a shelf lined with books that had saved me at different points in life. Finance, psychology, healing, boundaries, rebuilding. I didn't want an office. I wanted a workshop, where people could come not to be fixed, but to start again. I opened quietly. No launch, no ad, no grand email blast, just a flyer at the community center. And a line on my website. For the ones who held families together with silence and are now ready to be heard. The first person who walked in was a woman named Janine. She looked like someone who used to own power but had it slowly worn down by 100 small dismissals. She sat down, carefully. I was told I'm bad with money, but I've kept 4 people alive for 20 years on one salary. I just need help without the shame. I slid a notepad across the table. Then let's start with what you already did right. That list sounds long. She exhaled, not relief exactly, but the beginning of it. A week later, a man in his 60s came in with trembling hands. My daughter doesn't speak to me, but I want to understand how to leave something clean behind, not a mess. We mapped out a legacy plan, no judgment, just clarity. Every person who walked in carried something heavier than debt. Guilt, shame, silence. A family pattern they thought they had to keep, and every time they left, it was with a folder, a plan, a truth, and a new rule: you're allowed to own your story. Even the parts they called mistakes. One evening, as I turned off the lights and locked the door, I paused and looked back at the sign. For a long time, I thought I had to earn the right to speak, to be respected, to have boundaries. Now, I build rooms where that right is the default, and no one has to apologize for walking through the door. It was late. The lights in the workshop were dim. The air smelled faintly of cedar and worn books. I was sitting on the wide windowsill, arms wrapped around my knees, watching the traffic pass outside like quiet thoughts. My phone buzzed. Florida number. I picked up. "Diana, it's Alex." His voice cracked. "Mom's in Sarasota Memorial. This time, it's real. She's asking for you." I didn't cry, I didn't rush. I just said softly, "Thanks for letting me know." Then hung up. I sat there a long time after. I wasn't mourning. Not exactly. It was something quieter. Like finally seeing the ruins you walked out of from a distance. Then I heard the door open. Caleb, no words, just the weight of his presence as he sat beside me. He didn't ask what the call was about. Instead, he pulled something from his coat pocket, not in a dramatic flourish, just gently, a small velvet box. "I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks," he said, "waiting for the perfect moment. But I realized there won't be one. There's only this moment. You, me, and everything we've survived to get here." He opened it, a silver ring. Minimal, strong, honest, just like him. Then finally, he looked at me and spoke clearly, no metaphor, no hiding. "Diana Monroe, will you marry me?" For a moment, time held still. My hands trembled, not out of fear, but recognition. That someone had seen me whole. Not as a fixer, not as a wallet, not as a burden to carry or a prize to win, just me, and he still asked to stay. I nodded. "Yes," I whispered. "And no, you didn't pick the perfect moment. You picked the real one. That's better." He smiled, and for the first time in years, I let someone hold me without apologizing for how much I needed it.